Welcome back. You're watching All Angles, and former President Jacob Zuma can appeal his prison return ruling. Last week, you'll remember, the former president was ordered to return to jail to complete his 15-month prison sentence for contempt. He was released on medical parole by the prison's boss, the former prison's boss, Arthur Frazier, just 2 months after he got into his sentence. We get reaction now from the Jacob Zuma Foundation spokesperson, Mzwanele Manyi. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, Mr. Manyi. No doubt you are pleased with the outcome of today's proceedings, but there is still a journey that the former president has to embark on to keep out of prison on the notion of his medical parole.
Well, for now, I think we are happy that sanity has prevailed. This is indeed a breath of fresh air, that justice seems to be going in the right direction. This judgment was, in the first place, the original judgment of the 15th of December was very wrong. A judgment based on some Sunday Times reportage, as it were. A judgment that could have been even characterized as blasphemous, in that it's a judgment that even red-carded His Excellency President Zuma for being in a prayer. As it were. What kind of judgment is this that says a sick person in a prayer? That is not where it's supposed to be. You know, it even took Advocate Mpofu to educate the judge about the true meaning of parole. This was really atrocious of a judgment. I mean, this judgment, if it was allowed to stand, it would have also means that it would have also meant that the sentence by the Constitutional Court would have been extended again without trial. So this was really an outrageous state of affairs. So we're very confident that going to the Supreme Court of Appeal will really just shut this thing down, because it is without any basis. It continues to be a flawed judgment. So the Supreme Court of Appeal will just strike it down as a judge that would have grossly misdirected himself.
What about the argument that was brought on by DA counsel Ismail Jami earlier on during their arguments? The fact that the former president had the access to the best medical care while he was in prison, and now that he's back home, he is under the care of his wife, who's got no medical experience, and so he is now living in suboptimal conditions. What say you to that particular argument that was put forward?
No, I think it's an argument based on pure ignorance, because if he had just did a bit of homework, he would have known that His Excellency President Zuma is under the care of doctors, as it were. So these doctors got doctors 24/7 around him, as it were. So that advocate was just talking, shipping kind of law. That's not the kind of law that people should practice. People must be factual in their approach. If the person has got doctors around him, you can't go and just trivialize it and say a person is looked after by it. So what nonsense is that? He was talking absolute nonsense. And I think the judge saw right through that nonsense, and this is why we have the kind of judgment that we have now.
Right. It was also said that his condition is not such that he's not able to go on with daily life. You can confirm this for us, Mr. Manyi, but the former president is not severely incapacitated, is he?
The lawyers have traversed that very well, that the law talks about terminal illness. All these adjectives about stable conditions, not severely capacitated, are all the machinations of these judges that are, not judges, I beg your pardon, machinations of these advocates that are just hateful. They are just introducing things that are not in the law. South Africa is is a country of rule of law. So what you argue must be based on law, not on your privileged interpretation of the law. The law talks about a person to be terminally ill. A person that is terminally ill is a person that is terminally ill. You don't now come back and say, no, but he's stable. No, but he's not severely incapacitated. What nonsense is that? Terminally ill is terminally ill, and that's what is the condition that we're dealing with. That's what the law requires, nothing else. So people mustn't come here using their privileged positions to come and add all kinds of things that do not exist in the law.
Let's talk about the Supreme Court of Appeal and those proceedings that are set to take place soon, Mr. Manyi. What arguments are you hoping the Council will be putting forward to make sure that the former president is able to continue with his medical parole?
No, I think if you had listened today, it will probably be the same kind of arguments to say. In fact, I think if you looked at the summary of the judge, I think the judge has made a concession which will make the Supreme Court's work very easy, because he could see that his sentence, his arguments are in the judgment to say that the period outside prison doesn't count. That therefore, by definition, it means that he would have been released if this thing had gone through. It means President Zuma would have gone through more than just 15 months. It would have been much more. It means it would have been released instead of 2022. It means it would have been released in 2023. That alone is out of order. So on that alone, this thing is going to be thrown out, as it were. Secondly, the whole issue, which is very clear, kinds of things about all of that, but the issue of terminal illness hasn't been challenged anywhere in this thing. So therefore, the fact that the motivation that other players are looked at had terminal illness reference is unchallenged. So therefore, which is a pivotal ground, by the way. So therefore, this thing will just go through in the Supreme Court of Appeal, because the decision taken was a lawful decision. So that original judgment was a totally out of order judgment. So Supreme Court will...
Just a final thought from you, Mr. Manyi. How is the former president doing? Have you spoken to him recently? Is he in good spirits?
His Excellency President Zuma keeps coping with his condition. He can walk, he can talk, and all of that. But I think that must not distract the people from the medical diagnosis that has been made. And people must be very clear that when you are diagnosed the way it's been diagnosed with terminal illness, it does not mean you cannot speak, it does not mean you cannot walk, it does not mean you cannot pray, as it were. So this expectation that people must see President Zuma walking on his stomach, people must get rid of that expectation. It's not going to happen. President Zuma is coping with his illness, but the diagnosis remains a diagnosis which the doctors have made, and people must respect that.
Thank you very much for your update this afternoon, Mr. Mzwanele Manyi, giving us an update on their thoughts on the ruling that was made just a short while ago, also indicating that the former president is walking, he can talk.